what do you mean by business logic? And each service should be taken for every business as logic. What are your propositions to businesses?
Probably service is an option, right? Probably it's an option that it's good to choose in more cases than not. But I guess it depends very much, of course, on the situation, competitive situation. So, but it doesn't depend on whether you are basically in a product business or in a service business by traditional definitions. It's more like how do you want to approach your customers, what seems to be a profitable way of doing business. So what we mean is actually developing a way of conducting the business based on a service logic or service perspective.
A mindset. I would say that you can see that a business logic is more like a mindset, a way of thinking, a way of how you frame things when it comes to developing a relationship with the customers, and how you also frame what's happening in the market, in the market environment. And the service logic for me is that you try to integrate the firm's process with the ones of the customer instead of doing the opposite. And nowadays I think it's very common that you think that the customer's process should be integrated with the ones of the firm. Right. And that's the other way. Okay. Yeah.
Would you say that the service as business logic would mean conceptually the business should have service embedded in their concept?
Well, if we understand this, that service will be the dominating mindset. Right. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Meaning the way to approach the customer, and as Annika said, in a way that makes it possible for the firm to get involved with the customer's processes and not the other way around.
Right. Yes.
Okay. And we think this is a very important aspect here. Yeah. And too often in the literature, it's said that the new thing is to create a business model that invites the customer into the firm's processes, and we claim that it's absolutely the other way around if we are to achieve anything sustainable from a new competitive advantage point of view.
Exactly. Okay. Because you need to understand the customer's value creating context. Right. And all those processes and activities that belong to that context. Right. And then you can understand how you can contribute to the customer's value creating processes, and in which activities you should be present. Okay. Because that's the idea, that if you're going to create a sustainable relationship for the customer, you need to be engaged in those activities that are important for the customer. Because then you can make a contribution, and then you becomes important for the customer, and then you have the competitive advantage. Okay.
What would you recommend or suggest to future researchers in terms of how or what they should look for in order to use your idea of the business logic, service as the business logic, in their future studies, and what would you suggest?
Well, I would suggest that first do your homework well and base your thoughts on this outside-in idea. That is, it's the customer that's important, so the firm has to try to engage itself with the customer, and based on that, develop thoughts on how would you develop business models, marketing strategies, delivery strategies, etc., etc.
Okay.
Mm. And I also think for researchers that are interested in value creation context, they really need to realize that we're talking about two different processes. The firm has one process, the customer has one process. They're driven by different subjects, and they're driven by different goals. And also the idea of value is different in these two distinct processes.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's very important, because if you want to talk about value co-creation, you need to have a common goal for the process. Yeah.
You can't do a quantitative study until you know what you're studying so thoroughly that you can ask the right questions in a way that each and every respondent understands in the same way and in your way.
Right.
So we'd encourage much qualitative studies first, ethnographical studies, in-depth interview studies, observations, cases or larger studies like that. And then you can go into quantitative approaches after that. But we need to understand, I think, that case studies and qualitative studies, that's not anecdotal evidence, that is
Right.
real life that
Yes.
we can put into the development of knowledge, understanding. That is theory.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that well said, and I think that's where many young researchers have difficulty to comprehend.
Yes.
Particularly in other countries where methodology is kind of drained and drilled into them.
Yes.
If you don't do quantitative study, you're not a researcher.
But this is a major problem. A younger researcher can't take risks these days. We could do it more before, especially here within the Nordic school area, and no real breakthroughs happen unless you are allowed to take risks also methodologically.
Right.
Yeah. And you also need to allow time to understand phenomena.
Right.
It's really important, and to be reflective on things you see in the customer's context.
Right.
Mm.
Well, the first thing I would say, to understand your customers' practices well. What are your customers doing? Why are they doing what they're doing? What do they want to achieve? So we know what could we be engaged with?
Right.
I would say that would be the starting point. Would you add?
Oh, actually not, because I think that's the idea. It's very much about learning about the customer's activities and processes. And in order to make a difference, you really need to find those activities that are important for the customer. Another way is to find those activities that are sort of problematic for the customer, and help him to solve those problematic processes. Because nowadays we have many examples where firms hinder the customers in their value creating activities. And you need to understand that as well. When do I hinder the customer's value creating process?
Another thing I think that firms can learn from our approach and our study is relating to marketing, and that is that taking this service approach, understanding the customer and going out to engage yourself with the customer's processes and practices to help them create value for themselves, is that marketing is no longer restricted to making value propositions only, but we are in the position to be involved with the customer and kind of in a dialogical process where the customer's practice and the firm's practice merge. So we can actively and directly influence the customer's processes and therefore the customer's value creation as well.
Yeah.
And this is a real strength for marketers adopting a service logic.
Very good. Yeah.